Today, I want to show you how the court in Burnet County, cause number 34767, allowed my ex wife's attorney to violate my due process rights as a father. And what I'm fixing to show you is in March of 2010, we entered in a collaborative law model. This was after I'd won the kids in the divorce, and we had a family counselor that was written in as a mediator, written into our divorce decree, to mediate all problems so we could stay out of court. And because there were some ongoing issues with some things. So, and in that, the family counselor suggests wouldn't uh, discontinued visitation for my ex-wife. It was for about a year, I think. And then at one point, it got so bad, my ex-wife was sending my 12-year-old daughter half naked pictures of a 19-year-old kid, going, "Here's the boy I was telling you about." She was encouraging her to sneak out of the house and to run away, and the mommy will help. She was going to the school, causing scenes. She was getting on the school bus, causing a scene. And it just, I mean, it was a nightmare. Showing up at the house, I had to put a camera in so that I can monitor the house from my office in Austin. Anyways, it was a year plus long nightmare. Well, she went back to her attorney, and I guess someone gave her the money, and I won't mention who, but they just kept giving her money to do this. And the attorney filed a lawsuit. Let's see, back in um, let's see, back at the end of 2009. Anyways, nothing happened until finally in March. I responded to it myself. I had spent $17,000 on my divorce lawyer, and it was wrecking the finances to keep paying for lawyers. So I responded back to the lawsuit, and and then basically we ended up coming to this agreement that had the collaborative law model. And so I had to quit taking my oldest daughter to the family psychologist, found her a new psychologist that my ex wife would agree on. And so this was done in March of 2010. Not 6 months later, and if you read this and go through and look at it, everything's supposed to be, you're supposed to mediate all disputes through the collaborative law process instead of filing lawsuits. And then, if once you've gone through the collaborative law process, if parties still want to sue, then they can. But until they go through that process, and this was her attorney wanted this, and I agreed to it because I just wanted my children to be okay. I didn't realize what I was up against at this point. And um but if you read in here, down here, it says that the parties, they agree not to, that we're barred from a lawsuit. We have to go through the collaborative law process, and the only way that I could have filed a lawsuit was uh, a is a is to enforce child support, which I wasn't. She never paid me a dime, and and I'll explain that further later. But also, she wasn't allowed to do anything but file for to be able to get her child support lowered, and that was the agreed order. Everything else was, I had the kids, she had visitation, blah 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 blah. We had to agree on the counselor, but neither one of us were allowed to file any more lawsuits, unless it was to enforce child support or for her on her side to get it lowered. So, not 6 months later, on a visitation, my children got abducted from my custody. Basically, they went on a visitation, um, and it was over a move. They said that the circumstances materially changed for the children was their excuse for filing the lawsuit. Now, there was no 60-day notice that they're supposed to give here, and here it said, if there's any issues, somewhere in there it says you got to give a 60-day notice of the issue. Oh, yeah, here. Within 60 days, a written notice given to the party, blah, blah, blah. So what had happened is I was working in the semiconductor industry and I was on a temporary job, but I got hired permanently and they wanted me to be more available. And I was over an hour and a half away. My kids were in 3 different towns in school. And so I was driving 4.5, 5 hours a day. So I went and I moved to a big, beautiful house in Leander. But we waited till the end of summer to move so that the kids had time with their friends. The ex-wife was getting visitation back, so time with her while I moved. My ex-wife consented to the move. She helped me pack. She cleaned the house that I was living in for me once I moved. So she, by her actions and everything, consented to this move. And what she did was in the background behind the scenes with my oldest daughter was like, yeah, we're going to get dad. Just wait till he moves. And when he moves, we're going to nail him. So, they filed this lawsuit, violated the collaborative law effort. And in that lawsuit where they violated my due process rights also was not only the concert of fraudulent actions, because her and her attorney came up with this plan to fuck me over, but what they did is evidently they took my oldest daughter and had her interviewed in chambers with the judge. Now, kids have a right to say whatever, once they're 12 years or older. But let's see what Texas code says about this child interview. So this is the lawsuit that they filed in August of that same year, not 6 months after we signed the collaborative law model. So she stole my kids. The next day, I got sued with this lawsuit. I got served with it. So, and I hired an attorney who did not help at all. She told me it was an uphill battle because I was the father, not to remove the kids. It was a nightmare. When she should have went after this attorney, but they're friends. She should have had this attorney sanctioned and gotten my kids back immediately. But let's see what Texas law says about this interview in chambers with a child. So here's the Texas Family Code 153.009, interview with the child in chambers. Now, the court can do it on its own discretion. In other words, the court can say, hey, I want to interview the child, or either party can go to the court and say, hey, we want you to talk to this kid. But there's a couple of things in here I want you to notice, paragraph E and paragraph F. So with paragraph E, that says that the court may permit the attorney for a party, the amicus attorney or guardian ad litem, however litem, for the or attorney ad litem for the child to be present in the interview. So I was never notified of this child interview. So therefore, I was never represented during the interview. I was never had the option to request to be a part of the interview. And then also, I never got the opportunity to motion the court to have a record kept of the interview, as you see here in paragraph F. They just did it behind my back. The judge let them do it behind my back, and the judge is the same one that just not 6 months earlier signed the collaborative law order into place. So it's just a mess. What they let happen here I mean, from one thing. Now, when my ex wife abducted my kids, she had no home, she had no job, she had spent a, there were a bunch of hair follicle tests that failed, and when she wasn't allowed to see the kids. And then she steals the kids and puts them living on some sofas in another person's house. And my oldest daughter ended up getting pregnant from that teenage boy that lived there. And the whole time I'm being told there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. And I was paying good money for a lawyer. At that time, I was making six figures a year or right at it. And they just, you can't do anything. You just gotta, there's nothing you can do. It's an uphill battle. Don't remove the kids from the home. Well, she was able to steal them from me, but I wasn't allowed to get them back. You see what I mean? She took my daughter to the judge and said, oh, of course, my daughter wanted to be around her. It's called parental alienation. Used my daughter, gave her promises, that she was going to get daddy's money and all of that, and so got my oldest daughter to turn on me. Um, it was a nightmare. If anybody's ever been through anything like this, this was just the beginning of what I went through. Just the beginning. This is child's play compared to how it ended up going. But what I want you to see is, here's the statement of account from my attorney. She told me, not to remove the kids, don't move them. It's an uphill battle, and collaborative law model, not 6 months later, a lawsuit taking the kids. The court allowed it. They did an interview with the child, didn't even let me know before this lawsuit was filed. It's just awful. Oh, and I got CPS showed up at my door right after this and wanted in my new beautiful house to discuss that I was psychologically abusing my children. Well, they turned around and not a month later cleared me of like 4 counts of child abuse. It was insane. But when all of the madness was going on before these lawsuits, and I was being told not to let her see the children or even talk to them on the phone, I have 2 CPS case numbers where I called CPS because nobody would help me. The police wouldn't help me. Nobody would help me, and it was just a nightmare of trying to keep this situation just calm and let everything, just be dealt with civilly. And CPS, all they did was tell me if I let her see the kids, they were going to come and take them away from me, but that they were not going to get involved unless I let her see the kids. Told me that twice. But now CPS is knocking on my door, wanting to accuse me of psychologically abusing my children. And it was just insane. I had registered my kids in Leander schools. My daughter we've spent thousands of dollars like shopping, and when I took her to the high school, she was really engaged with the counselor. I mean, she played her part very well, and it's fraud. It's misrepresentation with intent to cause harm. And they were like, oh yeah, go ahead and move. And then as soon as I moved, they turned around and filed this lawsuit. And but it didn't matter that she helped me move, that she didn't have a home of her own, that they were going to visit another family so that they could see her and all of that. And it was just, Texas sucks. Texas sucks. Anyways, just these little things. You find a mountain of this little stuff. Don't leave it up to your attorneys. Man, you have to do your own legwork. I learned that the hard way. All right.